Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Let's get started. मैं थोड़ा सा रिव्यू करूंगा जो हमने पहले किया था इसके ऊपर, just to give you some more pointers, so you have those things in mind. ठीक है? And also what we do in real life situations in these kind of scenarios. So you can, if these kind of questions come in your case study, in your assignment, you can handle them appropriately. Nothing new, we have covered these things already, but just to reinforce few things. हमने यहाँ पे ये पढ़ा था, we looked at these things, और इसके अंदर हमने इसके solutions पढ़े थे. One of the important things in this one is, whenever you are given certain requirements, right, very first thing is what we ask from the customers, or if they do not have, what we try to do is we try to create the as is, the current architecture, right? As is architecture or the current architecture, right? That is your always the first starting point. You need to visually see what is going on and what customers are doing currently. You must do that, right? So just a moment, right? So that is going to be very, very critical, right? This is the starting point, right? इसमें हम दो तीन चीज़ें करते हैं. कस्टमर से हम पूछते हैं कि आपके पास है एज इज आर्किटेक्चर, एंड इफ दे डू we either get that drawing, or if they do not, then we have a question answer session and we ask them these things, right? ये आपकी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग का, प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट की, these are some fundamental things, right, that we do as part of engagement. So we and customers are on the same page. Whatever we are doing, we need to make sure our understanding matches. And usually the best way is to document, right? Either they have something documented, if they have good processes, and they share back with us, or if they do not have, then we do an investigation sessions. We see what is going on, we investigate, create a picture, and share with them to have a common understanding that this is what's going on in your environment, and they verify yes, right? So this is always a critical part of any project. तो यहाँ पे based on their stuff, this is the as is architecture drawn. यहाँ से आपको you will be able to see, right? Yes, I am recording. You can see this green thing. It shows that is being recorded. The green box. Okay. So यहाँ से आपको you're able to map these things very easily, whether it's IIS or PAS, right? You can expect, right, that I can ask you that do this thing in IIS or PAS or both. It should be straightforward mapping. Once you have the basic idea, it's pretty straightforward. The main thing is to be able to see कि जो आपको objectives मिले हैं, you are able to articulate your design and mention again briefly कि this is how we are tackling this problem, right? You need to be able to do that. Explain again very briefly. So it's not a very lengthy thing to do, right? It should not take too much time, but the main thing is that think through the problem statement and do it. It's not going to, it's not going to be very complicated. It will be pretty much what we are covering, right? All these ideas. And I will tell you pretty much everything what you need to know and what you need to cover, okay? So won't be anything, but main thing is, as you have seen in cloud computing, right? We need to be able to, everything comes together in these things, right? Regions, zones, we need to be clear on these things, right? What is a region? What is a so region is a concept thing. Region is a conceptual thing. It maps to a place where Azure has data centers, right? In a specific geolocation, right? Geographic boundaries. And region has usually multiple what we call availability zone. And that is again a concept, right? And that concept maps to a data center. Each availability zone is a conceptual thing, but in physically they are implemented as a data center. So I can say a data center, I can say availability zone. They are synonymous, right? They are equivalent to each other. We need to understand when we are building solutions. This thing, availability zone. When you talk about that language, it is for the reason that we are trying to articulate that we have zonal redundancy. Our VM is in multiple zones, right? So we should be able to understand Azure provides certain replications by itself, right? If we have zone redundancy. Whereas if I say data center, it doesn't convey the meaning, right? That kind of meaning. If I have VM in both data centers, okay, how are you replicating? I can say I have a zonal redundancy. It'll convey all the meanings, right? So understand going between concepts and physical thing, they're essentially same things, right? Each zone is a data center. There are three zones in a region. That's a concept, right? So just to be very clear, okay? So continuing from there, and this one what we saw was the PaaS solution, right? Mapping to platform as a service. Now, one thing that we did not cover, and I'm not expecting you to cover, is the how to migrate these things, right? Generally, application is straightforward. We can take the code and add it to the same thing as upload to the app service. An app service provides you an FTP address where you just upload the code. And then you can see if it's working, not working, if it's having problem, and then you debug the issue, right? So now there's a third variation of this one also, right? Which is I can ask you, right, that based on these things, containerize the application, right? So you can have an app service. You can have, for example, everything in app service or ACI or AKS, right? So again, depending on the situation, right? Depending on the components, right? So even though the compute is there, when you're talking about AKS, when you look at the function, right? Here we are not paying anything, but in an AKS kind of situation, we have maybe a couple of containers running, and the VM and the node can be taken over by other containers, right? It can scale automatically, whether node, whether pods, doesn't really matter, right? So that's also a good solution when you want to containerize this one, right? Which is something to keep in mind, right? What will happen? Another variation that can happen is I can say that this is running in Linux and this is running in Windows. And then if I say containerize, what to do? That means what will happen is in AKS, you must specify that I'm going to have two different node pools, one for Windows, one for Linux, right? You need to be able to specify that. If I give you this requirement that front end is running in Windows and middle tier is running in Linux or whatever, right? And I say it needs to be microservices. Your organization decided that we're going to do microservices based architecture. You should be able to understand that this is going to be two different node pools, right? From AKS perspective, right? So please be very, very clear on those kind of points. Another thing that I mentioned to you in this one was that once you have deployed this, how you're gonna do this. So if let me just take a screenshot and we'll do some, let me see, capture. Sorry. So if I do this, and I will take a screenshot of this, just a moment. So you have this picture, right? You have this picture, and what will happen is, what I can say is, I can do this, and what I can do is, I can put a traffic manager over here, right? Yep. Really? Oh, my bad. Because I'm sharing the slide only. Yes, sorry. Hold on. My bad. I'm going to share it again, and I'll share the window actually, entire screen actually. Just a moment. Entire screen. Okay. So now you can see this is what I was sharing. Okay. So I can do traffic manager, right? And as I mentioned in the class also, that I can request to do 80/20, right? So you need to specify that we need to pick the right load balancing algorithm, right? We did the 6 load balancing algorithms to make sure you go over them, right? So what we can say is that we are migrating this application. Customer wants to run the on-premises application for 6 months. Okay, so what we want to do is what to do in this case. If somebody says, I want to run this 6 months, so what we can do is, or want to keep this active for 6 months in case of, something happens over here. So what we do is traffic manager remains there, and we say primary traffic will go over here, and if something fails, if it's not available, only then send the traffic over here, right? So we can do those kind of things, right? So this is the also when we are deploying, when initially the cloud application goes up, we can also say that initially I want 80% traffic on-prem and 20% to go to cloud, and we can do that, right? We studied all of that, and if you look at it, for example, if I go over here and I say, uh, for example, Azure Traffic Manager load balancing. Let's see what is available to us. Let's see, I want to look at traffic manager. Okay. These are good things to read, right? To build your knowledge, to build your understanding better, right? They've done a lot of good stuff over here, and they've given you Visio file also for all these things, right? What I want to do is I want to go to the specific article that talks about. Let me see. Higher and load balancing. Let me see. Load balancing methods. Let's see. It's, oh, that's basically right. So you can see this is what we covered in the class also, right? So priority is it goes over here. If it's not healthy, it goes to the second, the one with the lower priority, right? But what this is the waiting right? So if I say that initially the traffic needs to be when we go live in the cloud, it should handle only 20% of the traffic. So you need to mention that we'll choose weighted traffic routing method in the traffic manager, and initially for 1 month, let's say, or 2 weeks, whatever its requirement is, you will set the on-prem endpoint 80, and you will do cloud endpoint, for example, 20, and run it for 2 weeks. And if it doesn't work out, for example, if it works out, everything is fine, and then the whatever requirement says, change it, right? After 2 weeks, everything is fine. I mean, we want to do 50-50, right? And after 1 month, we want to do 80-20, 80 cloud, 20 on-prem. And maybe after 2 months completely, you want 100 and 0. And on-prem will not be handling any traffic, only in case of something happens to the cloud for 1 month. Once everything is ready for 3 months, we have tested everything, everything is okay, then we'll shut down everything on the on-premises, right? This is generally what happens. And sometimes if you have done good testing, customer can say, I don't want to do all of that, I just want to shut it down completely right away, right? If it's migrated, running fine. And that happens too, right? So generally, as we have discussed, when we are migrating, उसके पास हमारे पास उसके motivations क्या होते हैं? To move as quickly as possible, right? So generally, verification of a website shouldn't take you 2-3 months. It should be maybe a couple of weeks, and you should be okay, as long as it's able to handle all the peak times, right? That's generally what it is, right? But anyway, understand the routing methods and the traffic manager. Okay. Now let's continue with this one. एक और चीज यू आर सीइंग ओवर हियर इज यहाँ पे डोमेन कंट्रोलर से यहाँ पे एजर एक्टिव डायरेक्टरी है. ये मैं एग्जाम की विल डिस्कस ऑन मंडे. मैं सारे मार्क्स वगैरह, सॉरी इट्स बीन रियली रियली लेट, मैं लेके आऊँगा. बट दिस इज आई हैव सीन too many people having all sort of problems. I went into details of this one. Azure Active Directory is an identity management and access management service based on HTTPS, right? आप अपने users बनाते हो, उनको roles देते हो, you give them specific access, you deny access, you have conditional access, and you have all of those things. You have federation. You can use Entra ID. Old name was Azure Active Directory, to control the access and all that, right, to the applications. And this is what we can leverage depending on the situation, and we need to be very clear about that also, right? What we are going to use it from Entra ID, which we're going to go in a minute, right? That's our third case study. ये हमने कल पढ़ा था. इसमें again understand very clearly. इसमें I think we have gone over it many times, so I will not do anything over here, right? इसमें I just want to clarify one thing, okay? Be very clear on this, which is Azure Files versus Azure File Sync. Azure Files is a service in Azure Storage, okay? In Azure Storage, it is a service that provides SMB-based file sharing, right? And the storage that allows SMB-based file sharing. It's a software layer on top of the storage, right? Azure File Sync is a small program, is a small backend program basically, right? That you can install on premises on a file server that allow you to sync your on-premises files with Azure files on the cloud. Okay, so it's a syncing tool basically, Azure File Sync. Be very clear on that one as well. Sure, ji. जी जी, मैं इसके बाद मैं इस स्लाइड डेक के अंदर आई विल ऐड, और मे बी आई विल ऐड जो अभी मैंने एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट्स मैंने बताए हैं, I will add all of those things and I will add some other things as well. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. And we can review those things. We can review those things in the class as well to go over all the possibilities, right? Again, the intent is not to give you guys a hard time. The intent is to go over these things enough time so they stick to your mind, right? And time comes, you can articulate and recall those things, right? और ये चीज़ें documentation you will have the notes in front of you. Documentation you can bring it. जिस तरह traffic manager की है, whatever you can उसको PDF बना के you can see, you can download PDF, right? You can bring this whole thing. ये PDF बना के आपको दे देता है. You can bring these things. But generally, it will not be anything special or new beside what we are covering. As you have seen from second exam as well, just focus on those things, right? Read it again and again, make your notes, go over them. You can finish this case study in half an hour. इसमें कुछ भी नहीं है, right? We are going over everything. But again, जिस तरह मैंने आपको एग्जाम में भी कहा था, go over the quizzes, right? 90% it was quiz, 10% it was from the review, and I think only few people got the review part correct also. So what I'm emphasizing, work on those things. It's nothing difficult, right? Nothing difficult. तो ये डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है, दिस इज अ गुड थिंग टू गेट दीज थिंग्स, राइट? कि आपको सारी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन आपको हाथ में मिल जाती है, राइट? इट कैन क्रिएट पावर, so it's a good thing you can download these things even for your own reading material as well, right? It's a very nice functionality they have added to the website, right? It can be overwhelming a bit, but I mean it's quite a bit of stuff. And सारी उसके अंदर उसी का जो website है ना, it becomes your PDF file, right? It's a very nice functionality. Use it as much as possible. Right? So you can do these kind of things if needed, but you should not. You should not need to go into this much detail. वैसे अपनी reading के लिए रख लेना if you need to. But generally, whatever we are covering, each things, this is all. I will not ask you anything around that, right? Anyway, let's continue. So, यहाँ पे मैंने आपको दो तीन चीजें बताई थी, and be very clear on those things. B2B and B2C, right? B2B ये कहता है कि ये हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, राइट? ये हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, ये इसमें ये हमारा एंट्रा आईडी है. इट हैज़ वेरियस डिफरेंट थिंग, MFA, आइडेंटिटी प्रोटेक्शन, एक्सेस रिव्यूज, कंडीशनल एक्सेस. दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ ऑल एंट्रा आईडी. और एंट्रा आईडी के अंदर जो एक्टिविटीज, ऑल द ऑब्जेक्ट्स सारे आ रहे हैं, दे कमिंग फ्रॉम एंट्रा आईडी कनेक्ट, राइट? इट यूज्ड टू बी Azure AD Connect. And all Entra ID Connect does is it basically grabs everything from ADDS, right, which is the on-premise Active Directory Domain Services, and grabs the objects, whatever you are picking. You can say everything, or you can pick and choose, right, whatever you are doing, and it will synchronize. And synchronization can be one way, two way, and both, right, or none actually, right? मैंने पासवर्ड के ऊपर आपको बताया था that generally we specifically pick that, right? But we can do all in all the attributes, but generally we don't touch on all the attributes. Generally it's two-way synchronization, but password के ऊपर usually since it's a sensitive piece of information, companies are very reluctant. So this is something to keep in mind. Password is very specially handled by a lot of organizations, right? Password hash, and it's not password, it's password hash actually, right? Password is not stored in Windows, its password hash is stored, right? उसके अंदर आपके पास ऑप्शन होती है to do two-way hash as well, so you can recover it, but generally it's just one way by default. Anyway, so ये जो एक चीज मैंने आपको एक और बताई थी कि you need to be able to read the pictures. That is absolutely very critical. What are they trying to show you, right? तो यहाँ पे जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, फॉर एग्जांपल ये टेलविंड ट्रेडर्स, फॉर एग्जांपल ये माइक्रोसॉफ्ट ने एक्सपेक्टेशियस कंपनी बनाई हुई है, राइट? तो इनका जो मार्केटिंग पार्टनर है उनका भी एक अपना टेनेंट है Azure AD का, एंट्रा आईडी का. Azure AD इज द ओल्ड नेम, न्यू नेम इज एंट्रा आईडी, राइट? तो B2B इनवाइट्स, और ये मैंने आपको दिखाया था जस्ट टू री इनफोर्स, राइट? आई विल गो इनटू दिस वन. Microsoft, sorry. मैंने आपको दिखाया था इसके अंदर कि how do you do B2B invites? B2B invites it means that I can give somebody access from their tenant. I can invite them as a user on my tenant. ये जिस तरह अभी फॉर एग्जांपल अभी मैं आपको दिखा रहा था, मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ कि इनवाइट आई हुई है मेरे पास ईमेल में. होल्ड ऑन. मैं देखना चाह रहा हूँ कि इनवाइट है मेरे पास. I will show you what happens when you get in B2B invite. And some of the guys who have requested access on this thing from me, उनको भी invitations आई थी. So let me just see. Just one moment. I just want to show you what the invite comes, how the invite comes. Invite. ये होती है invite, right? This is invite is like this. उनका domain ये है, and they say, okay, you with this ID have been given send an invitation, right, on their tenant, right? What's happening to the mouse? Right. And the way it happens is I can go over here. मैंने क्लास में दिखाया था, I'm just rehashing so you are very clear from this perspective. Um, um, intra ID, right? Intra ID. And I can say, for example, I can say manage users. ये मुझे मेरे पास access नहीं है इन सब चीज़ों की because I'm just a user, but I can invite. And here's how you do invite. Invite. I cannot create. I can invite external users, right? And I can do anyone, right? I can invite anyone. For example, this is my Gmail account. So I can invite, right? And I will get very similar invitation in my email like that, right? The idea is, और जब आप इस tenant के अंदर invite हो जाते हैं, that means you're a user. जब आप access करते हो, I can enforce all my policies on you. MFA policies, authenticator policies, whatever policies, right? If you are accessing my tenant, if I'm authorizing, if I am saying that I will accept accept you as an external user, and you accept the invitation, you are basically agreeing to follow all the policies, and I can apply the same policies that I'm applying on my own users, right? From password policy, from MFA policy, and whatever, right? I can do that. So idea is, if somebody is coming to access your tenant, you can ensure that they are fully authorized and fully authenticated and following all the security policies that your tenant requires, right? That's the whole purpose of invitation. So once they authenticate on their tenant, they will provide ID password on their tenant, right? And then they come in, and just like for example, right? ये जो मैं आ रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, if you look at it, यहाँ पे मेरा account है, but look at the directory, right? If you look at the directory, you can see this is not Microsoft.com, okay? ये मेरी actual directory is this one, जहाँ मेरा account है. But my account has been authorized or invited on this one. ये Microsoft का non-production domain है, right? They are also do much more things than this one, right? तो यहाँ से मैं authorize होता हूँ, and then I can work on this one. This is a B2B scenario, right? I can do whatever I want to over here, right? So this is also exactly what B2B is, right? तो यहाँ पे partners जो होते हैं when they're working on our applications, what we do is we tell them give us your ID, and we go and add them. We add them into our Entra ID. We send them invitation. Once they do the accept, they are authorized in our tenant, right? And once that is done, we can give them access to any application where they can go and work, just like the regular employees, right? So marketing partner हैं ये आपके वो बनाते हैं audio, video, PDF. They do all of those things, and they upload all of that basically in the website or update the website, right? So any marketing teams are third party that you do on contract to do all that work basically for you. Okay, so that's the B2B invite basically. यहाँ पे जो important चीज़ें हैं that is Active Directory Domain Services, right? Active Directory Domain Services, आप उसको Azure AD या Entra ID, whenever there is Azure AD, that's Entra ID, okay? Entra ID connect इस्तेमाल करते हो to replicate, right? There are these things. On-premises users right, coming from on-premises Active Directory Domain Services to Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, just like जो मैंने अभी शो किया था. अब यहाँ पे अगर आप आओ, just to show you, right? If I go back, go to Entra ID, I go into the users, right? I can put my ID, and it will show you that this is my ID, right? It shows you also that I'm coming from an external Active Directory. Why? External Azure AD, because this I'm not part. My account is not part of this domain. I'm invited, right? You get a B2B invitation accepted, right? So I'm coming from over there, right? So again, but the point is, even in this domain, I am synchronized. My ID is sitting on premises in the Active Directory Domain Services. और मैंने आपको बताया था, the machine on which Active Directory Domain Services are running is called a domain controller, right? It's called a domain controller. So on-premises domain controller say these things are getting synchronized, okay? So be very clear on this one. Then इसके बाद मैंने आपको बताया था, अब ये उसका सारा प्रोसेस है, ठीक है? यहाँ पे आप इन Entra ID में you basically invite, आप invite करते हो उसके दूसरे tenant से, right? From a B2B, whichever other tenant is, right? You invite them, and then you basically hold on just 1 second. Right, you invite them, and this is what happens, right? So understand the process, right? So these are guest users, B2B, just like I showed you. So they're on-premises users and they're guest users, right? So मैंने जो बताया था आपको, हम जनरली क्या करते हैं कि we can say we can either do MFA for everyone, or we can say MFA for admins. And generally, when somebody else is coming from the partner accounts mean simply the B2B, because when one business is allowing other business to come in, that is you're inviting a business basically, right? So that is B2B. So we call them partners basically, right? It's just a terminology, nothing really special, right? Access reviews basically allow, which is to review the access, right? कि उनका जो title है, whatever the role is, ये इसके अंदर Entra ID के अंदर it allows you to see कि किस यूजर के पास क्या एक्सेस है, right? You can check those things. Let's see anything else. ये हमने कंडीशनल एक्सेस के अंदर पढ़ा था कि अब ये देखो मैं आपको बताऊं, फॉर एग्जांपल दिस इज अ वेरी कॉमन थिंग इन सर्टेन प्लेसेस. फॉर एग्जांपल आई कैन से This is the bank in Saudi Arabia, right? If you go over there, website opens up fine, or at least it should open up fine. Right? It opens up fine. But if I try to do this, right, here is the block, right? It does not open up because I'm not in the geolocation where it is accepting the logins, right? And this is tied to the country. They do not allow logins from outside country. Okay? So you can see these kind of things you can do. Right? And this is what Azure allows you to do. Azure, they're not using, but I'm just giving you, this is what happens, right? So all these things we need to put together. ठीक है? इसमें partners भी आ सकते हैं, इसमें users भी आ सकते हैं, and those kind of things, right? How does these things come into the picture? Especially B2B is a very, very common thing in real life situations, right? Just now, look at this one. This is my account, right? This is my account. If I go to Azure, and if I just go over here, switch directory, all these organizations have given me access, right? They have invited me, I have accepted invitations, and all these different companies, they have allowed me to come and do the work on their stuff, right? So this is the beauty of this, right? You don't have to worry about anything uh, compromising security or anything, right? This is the beauty of this one when you do B2B kind of scenarios that Entra ID allows you to see, right? फिर मैंने आपको बताया था B2C part as well. B2C is essentially when you allow other people to access your applications only. So Facebook is doing B2C. Facebook is business. Consumers come and they log in. They do not have access to any system, but identities is what you're dealing with over there. So Facebook is maybe not a good example simply because they do not allow any, I don't think they allow, I don't know, for you to log in with any other ID. I think they force you to use their own ID. But like our local websites, different things, they will ask you use Facebook ID, use Twitter ID, use Gmail, and whatever, right? Lot of your mobile application, they will say use your sign in with your Gmail, right? Google ID. So that's what B2C is essentially, right? So that one is over here. If you go back over here, let's see, and if I can enterprise application. I'm just picking something randomly, just trying to see if I can get to the settings right now that I need to. Let's see. इसमें conditional access है, right? It's not enabled, I think, or I cannot go into this one. But I want to let me see if I can do this one. अगर मेरे पास access है इसकी, then I can show you something. No, I'll show you maybe next time. I want to see it properly. यहाँ पे इसके अंदर you can do, for example, different tenants, personal emails, and all those things. You can do those kind of things, right? But anyway, I need to go through it to make sure I don't give you wrong information. But anyway, B2C के अंदर application आप configure करते हो and you allow other people to log in with their own user accounts from different systems, right? ये हमने उसके अंदर B2C के अंदर पढ़ा था, ठीक है? Anyway, I'll stop the recording. So ये ताकि मैं ये case study सी अलग कर लूँ. Then we'll go into the material for a few minutes.